Welcome to the DMF. I'm Justin Younts. This is part two.
Absolutely. And I think it's good that you were editing it. So you
I
kind of have
was.
an idea of what you want it to look like. Um,
Yeah, there was a few compromises that had to be made there. I was using
yeah,
just this cheap off the shelf computer and
yeah,
using After Effects with that with that
right.
really bad computer. I think I probably put about 4 hours into every second of that short
She
film,
said,
just
yeah,
After Effects, and part of that was because my computer kept crashing every 10 minutes. There was just it was so hard to actually get
yeah.
through. I've since built up my own computer that's a workhorse just for editing,
Yeah.
things like that,
What
but
kind
yeah,
of
it was
computer were you using? I'm just
uh,
curious.
oh, it was, it
Mac?
was one from I can't really say that it had a brand. It's from one of
Okay.
these local shops that, builds computers, but it was their off-the-shelf model of it, so I wouldn't
Yeah.
say it was Dell or HP, it was just kind of their stock version of, "Oh, this is a good home computer, it'll last you forever." Yes, it will, yes, it did,
Yeah.
but
Can it handle
it
that,
it it didn't
editing?
have the processing power that I needed to handle, VFX
Yeah.
and things like that.
That's kind of what I like about Mac is, it does handle it pretty well, the processing power of what you need. I don't know. I haven't tested it to the lengths that you might have to do with that where you've got, I mean, you're using Premiere Pro, right? I
Yeah,
assume.
yeah,
Yeah.
I'm in the whole Adobe suite
Yeah.
right now. I know there's
Same
others
here.
out there, but I've kinda kinda entrenched myself in this and know most of
That's
my stuff on it, so
that's
it's hard to
exactly
switch.
how I feel. And now with all the AI that's coming in that makes it so much easier where you can just get a transcript and just change it, go right to that word and
Yeah,
cut that out. I mean, to me those are good. Those are going to be great tools. The scary thing is it's like we need to remember that AI is a tool, not, not the solution, you know.
yeah. I've got these skits that I do with a lot of my YouTube content that
Yeah.
I throw in front of some of my things, and
Yeah, I saw the
they're
last
they're
one.
really terrible.
But
Most of them are terrible because 'cause they're just me with a camera, and then I jump on and I sometimes use AI to help me out, but the more that I learn about AI is that, yeah, it is a tool. It's not gonna replace anything, but
yeah.
it does make things a lot more accessible than maybe it would have been 10 years ago, and
Yeah.
everything does that. Digital cameras did that, and, I mean, if I would have tried to do anything I'm doing now 10 years ago, it would have been so much harder, but, yeah, the
Yeah.
thing with AI is, you know,
Imagine having to use film and not
film,
having
yeah,
not having digital where you could shoot as many takes as you want, where you had film and it was
gotta have
like,
your light
w-
meter, gotta know
we
exactly how to
we
use
lose
it,
the
and
film we don't have anymore.
yeah,
What are we going to do?
boy, you
You
know,
know?
the
People
entries
don't
to
realize how lucky we have it, you know?
yeah, the barriers to entry are so low, and it makes it easy for anyone to create if
Yeah.
they want to, but there is still, excuse me, there is still craft that goes into all of this. It's not like you're just gonna step in one day and say, "I'm gonna make a movie because AI will do it for me, and I got a digital camera." It's all, why do I even need lights if I got a digital I mean,
Yeah.
there's no there's no substitute for craft and actually learning what you're doing and good storytelling.
I mean, you could start with something like that, but if you want it to like be, really interesting, you're gonna have to bring your own thing. It's just like, if you use Chat GPT and you just say, make me a thing, I think it works much better if like you're writing an email and you say, here's the email that I just wrote. What would like make it better? And it'll give you some suggestions and you can choose to take that as opposed to saying, write me an email that says I'm sad or something. I'm sorry. And then you're
Yeah.
you're not doing anything anymore. Now your brain is completely checked out and you're just, I mean, some people just, will just throw that on there. I mean, like we're losing the proofreading aspect of it. It's like you need to look at this as a tool of like this can enhance it because it might see something that you don't see or you might not be able to do that with the camera. And now afterwards, in editing, we can go, okay, we can make that better as opposed to what you had to do, which you spend 4 hours every day. You talk about it in your blog where you were like spending, you were losing sleep because you were doing so much, and my hat's off to you for doing that, because it just, and I think that comes back to the spirit that you have, especially with, going to school, and, and working in, working in construction, and doing those same things at the time. You have to have your stuff together to be able to do that. Um, Moving on a little bit, I want to talk about, because I read your book. I really enjoyed your book. I want to make sure I get the title right again. Um, One for the money, two for the soul. There you go. That helps there. The visual aid, and I really loved what you did with the characters and everything. I wanted to ask, what was your inspiration to write this book? Because now we're kind of
S
moving into the author aspect of. We'll come back
Yeah,
to it.
so it's really hard for me to say what was my particular inspiration for any of my books because
Mm,
as a creative and a storyteller, and maybe I'm a little bit different than others, I just have so many ideas that are just always coming to me, and
mm,
I don't have enough time in my own lifetime to tell all the stories that I wanna tell, and
mm.
so I tend to keep a list of stories, they'll just pop into my head and be like, "That sounds like a good story," and I'll keep a running list, and then once it comes up on the docket where I have a free space, 'cause I structure my time, and it's like, "You know what? Once I find a time where I need to add a new story, I'll go through my list, and I have to just find out which story is speaking to me at that moment, and when I do, that's the one that I choose. I say, "Okay, well, there's 1 for the money, 2 for the soul. I'm feeling strongly about this story at this time. That's the one I've gotta write." And, like, when I get a series, I might do I've got another series that I've been working on where that one really spoke to me, but I need to fill in the gaps between books on that series with standalones because I don't like getting stuck in one series. I need to write what speaks to me at the time, and
Mm.
that's part of just my creative brain wanting an outlet. It's gotta have somewhere to dump into, and so for me at the time, 1 for the money, 2 for the soul was the passion project. It's the one that made the final cut, so to speak.
I mean, because what I like about it is you're looking at, you're using like the souls, but it's kind of looking at human trafficking in some ways. Is
Right.
that correct? Am I correct in
Yeah,
my
yeah, yeah, exactly. I mean,
example?
you've got somebody, they've basically learned how to clone people at any age, but the fact that you can clone somebody at any age removes some of their ability to actually think or all of it. They're basically empty shells, pretty well good for maybe organ harvesting or something. But then
Yeah.
you add in this element, maybe this criminal organization's the only one that knows how to do it, which is to actually pull somebody's spirit out of their body and transplant it into one of these shells. And that's kind of the premise of the story is that you've got some criminals who learn how to do this and it elevates human trafficking to a whole different level. And so yeah, it was an interesting idea.
Because at the beginning you have this little girl who's, just this innocent girl, and that's kind of what happens. Is her soul is like split in two, and they put
Yeah,
it
yeah.
into
And when that
somebody else. They
happens,
put it
yeah,
into the shell.
yeah. Yeah, and part of her, that one half that stays in her retains some of her own personality and characteristics, while the other half gets the other personality and characteristic traits, and they're polar opposite, and so it makes for a whole lot of fun gameplay on both ends, and yeah, there was just so many directions I could take that, it was fun.
Yeah, I just I love the character, and I love that idea, because it's just like they're ripping away this soul, but they've split it, and they got part of it, but they didn't get the other part. Um, do you want to talk a little bit about like just give people maybe a synopsis of your book from your own words?
Okay, yeah, sure. So, 1 for the money, 2 for the soul. Like we said, there's this girl named Winnie, and she is trying to just be a normal kid when these criminals, they're kind of bumbling idiots. They try to steal her soul, and it pretty well rips in half. half of it she retains, the other half goes into this boy who has been purchased by an assassin. This assassin wants to train him as an apprentice or as an apprentice to take over for him. You know, he's got this long-standing guild thing and so he the little boy, the assassin's apprentice, he gets the characteristics of the logical end of things. You know, he's kind of Vulcan in a way. You know, he's got
Yeah.
no emotions. He's got a really strong capacity for learning and no real people skills. And
Yeah.
this translates into making everybody around him very uncomfortable, but it makes him also very efficient at the lessons he's learning from this assassin. And then on the flip side, you've got Winnie, who is she basically got all the fun, bubbly personality, the great people skills, but no logic whatsoever.
Yeah.
No ability to learn what is good and what's bad. She just is going about her life as fun as it can be, and nobody knows how to handle her either. And so it's kind of fun seeing two groups of people who just don't understand how to work with either of these, and they're both on their own separate journeys, and eventually, you know, they're going to want to reunite. It's one spirit, but it's in two bodies. So
Yeah.
kind of the gameplay on how that happens.
It's a fascinating book. I suggest you read it. What would you say the inspiration for some of these characters were?
Oh boy. I had some inspiration to start with. I
Yeah.
wrote based off of those, and then I had to change them because, you know, I didn't want any actual people that anyone would know to be in here.
Mhm.
Um, I would say, well, uh, like Clary Hinton. She's like the main boss bad person.
Yeah.
Okay. My inspiration for her was not necessarily the personality of Hillary Clinton, but kind of the overall look of her. Like, I wanted a professional looking woman. I didn't want to bring any politics into this, but
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
felt like she has a very businesslike personality or businesslike appearance. And at the
Yeah.
time, I kind of
The
just did a play on
pantsuit
her
and
words,
everything.
Clary Hinton, Hillary Clinton. You know, you can kind of see where that goes in. I think it was
Oh,
actually
wow,
during
I
the
can't believe I didn't
elections.
catch that. I mean, I'm pretty well versed on
Yeah, I wasn't sure if I should
politics,
mention that or
and
not, but
I didn't even catch that, but, like, looking back at it, I'm like, "Oh, yeah, yeah, you're right. That is exactly." Oh,
I
wow.
I also had
Great.
another character in there whose name was Don Bugle because I started writing this during the election when Hillary and Trump were going at each other, and I thought, "Not Donald Trump, let's do a Don Bugle sort of a character," and I did that as her partner, and I ended up cutting him out,
Yeah,
but
because we only have Theo really,
yeah,
as your
Theo, I didn't really have inspiration for him, but, um, a lot of my characters in my books,
I
I don't
love the
like
way you describe him when you introduce him as this, you don't say he's overweight, but you basically say he's overweight by the way he's eating and the size of the shirt, and I was just like, "That's awesome writing.
yeah,
That's
I
so
I don't
good."
like sticking with traditional
Yeah.
characters in my books. Like, I have met so many people in so many walks of life, and I actually had another character written in here that my editor basically said, "Get rid of him. No one would ever be like that." I'm like, "Yeah, I worked with a guy exactly like that." But yeah, I understand what you're saying.
Yeah.
Maybe he's not relatable enough to other people, but
Yeah.
it when you've been like I've been in the construction world for so long. I've met so many people, so many clients, so many people that I work with. You meet so many people and you realize that there's such a broad range of people, and it's
Yeah.
fun to play with some of those characteristics that you've actually met in real life, whether most of my characters aren't actually based as closely to one character or one person from life as another,
Yeah.
uh, but learning from them and actually incorporating that into my characters is a lot of fun, and it's better than just saying, "There was the dude, he was your tall, handsome, dark-haired guy," and or, "Yeah, there's the the dropout beauty," and,
Well, that's the thing I love is the prose of it. I was like, "Oh, I like the way he's described," I was like, "Okay, yeah, you're a good writer," because you were describing characters like, "Oh, I get that." My favorite character was Gnome. I thought he was such a fascinating character because just he's this what was the inspiration for Gnome? Am I saying his name right?
yeah, Gnome, yeah, that's right.
Okay, okay.
Oh, so Gnome I wanted somebody, so this is the assassin in the book. He's the one who's purchasing the young boy, whose name is Garm. So Gnome is near retirement. He's I wanted him to have sort of this traditional guild style to him, something that has been passed down to him through not only generations but millennia. So I wanted to give him kind of an old world origin. And
Mm.
so he maybe has some of that darker skin, kind of a pale complexion, and uh, and just kind of a different way of looking at the world since he's grown up detached from the world and he's a man of the world. And then I actually have a relative on my wife's side who, some of the appearance and things I was getting from him, and I was like, you know what? I think this could actually work.
Mm.
It's definitely not his personality, but the
Yeah.
look was inspired by him, and then I kind of was able uh, to form a character around that.
Well, he was such an interesting like, because he's a teacher-like character. He's kind of teaching Garm throughout the book. I don't want to go into exact specifics because I want people to, to read the book. But I like, how you went about that. He's kind of like a tough love kind of guy, but it comes from a place of like logic. He's not, he's not just a bad dude just for the sake of, being a bad, because I mean, like, Winnie, what happens to her father is really sad. I don't want to, I don't want to go into that, but with him, I just felt like he just had this, like this teacher mentality, but playing these games and continuing to up the ante because he knows what he needs his assassin apprentice to be, and he continues to do it. But he also recognizes that he's like half. There's part of him missing. Um. Anyways, I love the book. One of the things I wanted to ask you is what was the hardest part about writing this book?
So this one, this book came together really easily,
Mm,
but one of the things that I did struggle with this was I was still learning description, trying
mm,
to make my story come alive, more of the show don't tell type of the things, kind of like how you mentioned that I described Theo as not
yeah.
being an overweight individual, but kind of trying to bring him to life more. And I think that was one of the things that I really focused on a lot while writing this book was trying to learn how to do that. And it took several drafts to get it to the point that I got it, but that was a tricky spot on it, and then the other part was just the anticipation, the waiting to release this because, I mean, I got this one finished a little while ago, but I was still within my 10-year journey, and I said, "You know what? This is the first book that's good enough for me to put my name on," and because I used to write under a different pen name for my trunk novels and things that maybe I don't need
Mm.
everyone to read, but if they do read, I don't want them to associate with my name so much because they're not as good, so but yeah, just waiting until I was ready to actually jump into this career because I would hate to have somebody read my book, love it, and then not have another book to jump into.
Mm, interesting. Was there like talk a little bit about like getting that published? Was that a hard road to
No, not
go?
really. No, because I kind of, after going the route of the traditional publishers trying to get that published through them with all my trunk novels and seeing just how that worked and then how it was evolving, I kind of realized that for me, self-publishing was more the route I wanted to go.
Mm,
I don't feel like it's vanity publishing anymore, and I feel like if you've got a good story and if you can get it out there to enough people and market it,
yeah.
then then you can actually start creating your own publishing company. You can make this work without going the traditional route, and so I wanted to basically keep that all in house. And I when I self-published the trunk novels that I had, the ones that were under the BC Crow name, I learned how to do this. So I, I learned the programs to work. I learned some of the best places to do it, and there's some
Mhm.
give and take on that end of it too. But um, But yeah, I learned the skills to do it, and they weren't really all that difficult. And
Mm,
so, yeah, just running my own publishing company wasn't all that hard, and I'm pretty sure that I'm gonna go that route. Even if I had a publisher come to me and want to
mhm.
publish my novels, I might think twice about actually going that route. I mean, maybe if they offered me a deal that I couldn't refuse, but I
Yeah.
feel like it's not that hard of a barrier to get into anymore, and even when you do go the traditional publishing route, there's pros and cons to that also.
Yeah. When you did you present this to some traditional publishers? Did they have notes?
No, I didn't even,
Oh, you didn't even
give
run
this
it.
one to
Okay.
traditional publishers. I said, "I'm gonna own this one all out."
Yeah. As you talk
Yeah, I
about that, the dangers of publishing and then it not going anywhere and then them retaining the rights for 10 years. And
There
it's just like,
there is some dangers there, and, you could go the publishing route and retain all and, then your rights are tied up for a specific amount
yeah,
of time, or you can go the self-publishing route, but you lose the gatekeepers when you go the self-publishing route, which really there's no gatekeepers left anymore because everyone's
yeah.
self-publishing now. There's just so much content out there now. But,
And we're kind of
but I
seeing
think it
that
isn't.
happen all throughout,
Eh
filmmaking, everything.
Oh,
Everybody's
yeah,
kind of
everything
trying to get
creative,
away.
yeah.
Everyone is trying to get away from the idea of the corporation owning your stuff and just basically doing it and writing some contract and then saying, oh yeah, and then you didn't read this part in there, like musicians, they'll like, well, every dollar you spend we're going to take it out of this amount that we owe, that you owe us, and it's this giant debt and it just continues to balloon up, and it's like, unless you make a certain amount in concert or music sales, you can never really recoup it. It's like this like
Exactly.
debtor's prison that they've created, and it's, I think a lot of people are kind of catching on to that and being like, I don't really want to take the risk of you owning my, like, we can work together, but you're not going to own it for 10 years where I can't do anything with it because you just want to own it just to have it. It's like, it kind of feels like it's just this, they have these, they just want it as an asset because, like, well, it didn't work anymore, but we're going to retain it as an asset and we're not going to give it back to you. Whereas I feel like the right thing to do would be like, okay, this didn't work, so we're going to revert the rights back to you at this time because we didn't make what we need. But that's usually not what happens. The rights, you know we're
Well,
not doing
and
anything, we're just going to hold it.
yeah, and one of the other things that you
No
gotta
one
be
can have it.
yeah, yeah, exactly, and I would say there's one other aspect too of that that you gotta be mindful of, like, you might wanna retain all these rights and things, but when you're getting rid of those other peer reviews in there, you run into other problems too, like, when I did One for the Money, Two for the Soul, I'm a big advocate of getting other eyes on it,
Yeah,
and so when I first finish this, I'll do several drafts of it before I'm at a point where I need others to look at it, but I send it out to professional editors. I'll spend a couple $1,000s to have somebody
yeah.
give me an actual edit on this. So, like One for the Money, Two for the Soul, I first sent that out to Dave Wolverton. He's an author. He actually lives down in St. George, Utah, but he's a best-selling author. I, he's got these Rune Lord series that just put him on the map, and
Mm,
but he's a really good writer and a really good editor. And
mm,
so I worked with his team a little bit to hone a lot of the things in here. I fixed a lot of things, and then I was ready for another edit, and I sent it off to another editor and had them go through it. And every step of the way, I'm tightening this down, and I'm getting feedback from other
yeah,
professionals who know storytelling. And that's one of the reasons the book is so good, is because if I just relied on myself and didn't get some of that peer review in there, there'd probably be a lot of issues in there. For one, there was a prologue that was really terrible that I had to throw out. It's actually the basis for one of my short films. And there was, like some characters that I had to change around or get rid of. And some of these things were blind spots to me at the time, but after working with these other creative professionals, it was a lot easier to chisel away and create the tight story that you need.
yeah. And if you went the traditional publishing route, you're gonna just they're gonna have their peer review
Exactly.
team, and they're only going to look at it, whereas you're sending it out to these different places so that you're getting different ideas. Whereas if you're just relying on their team, they've probably got a system of how they're going to see it. And, it's,
Yeah,
I don't
you
want to
still
say it's
need your
cookie
own system.
cutter,
If you're
but
not gonna
it's
use theirs, you have to replace it with something.
exactly, exactly. Do you have a process for how you like to write?
Yeah, I do. I mean, you know, I segment my days, and
Mm,
so in the mornings, I have basically 4 hours in the day. I'll usually write for an hour in each story that I'm working on. I have 3 to 4 stories that I'm working on at any given time, whether it's a book, a screenplay, or, something else. Sometimes it'll just be some blog posts that I'm doing,
mm,
but I always segment my time out so that mornings are my time for writing, and then, I do have some of my investments that I do have to manage in the mornings too. But yeah, I'll use that time to actually do the writing or to do the editing on those books. And then I have another process for kind of a more long-term view of get the first rough draft down and
mhm,
then go back through, edit it again, try to make it look how I want the story to go because I write by outlines. I'm not a pantser. And so
yeah.
as
You
I
talked
go through
about
my
that before. Yeah.
outlines, I still allow room for the stories to grow and to change my outlines, and that happens a lot, but when that happens, you run into big continuity issues. So the rough draft is always terrible, and then you get to the next draft, and you're actually making the story connect the way it should, and then I go through it a couple more times, and then I send it off to an editor. And when I get the feedback from the editor, I go through everything on there, see what I want to take in, what I don't. I do that, and then I go through another round or two, and then I might send it back to the editor a second time, and then I'll kind of repeat the process. And once I'm starting to feel good about it, I might just do a quick breeze through it, and then it's on to proofreading, getting rid of all those double thes or spelling errors or different things. So in total, I do about 12 drafts of every book.
12 drafts. Okay, wow. Is there a certain just lost my train of thought. It happens. When you're writing this, when you're writing your book, I don't know, I can't come back to where I was.
That's fine.
Talk
Yeah.
talk about like when you're wow, trying to figure out how to get back to that. Please like, share, and subscribe. Thank you.